On February 28, 1996, United Press International published an article, Satellite Signals a Puzzle, mystifying the STS-75 tether incident. When the astronauts were actually able to regain contact with the tethered satellite, they found several unexplainable surprises. The article states, "There has been an event on the satellite that we do not understand yet," astronaut David Wolf told the Columbia crew. First, radio signals from the satellite caused engineers some surprise. The configuration of several systems had changed from when NASA lost contact with the craft on Sunday. For example, the spacecraft's nitrogen fuel tank was emptied and its steering thruster valves were opened. In addition, a gyroscope that had been left on was powered off, while two other gyroscopes remained on. All of these incidents require electronic, remote control commands from the astronauts on the shuttle. But if the astronauts did not make these commands, then who or what did? Could it have been the unidentified flying objects that took over the controls of the satellite? So take a look at the tape again and see for yourself if some of the things I'm saying are not true. Dear Mr. Sarita, if the phenomena is interesting enough to deserve an investigation, then our preference would be for controlled experiments that closely duplicate the circumstances of the original observations and test our working hypotheses until they are either verified or falsified. A second line of investigation would be to obtain more evidence of the original sightings. For example, additional shuttle camera tapes. There are at least 4 mounted in the bay, to see if the same objects were seen on these. If these objects were large, then the same object would appear on 2 or more cameras, and these can be used to triangulate the distance from the shuttle to the object. If there are no objects that appear simultaneously on 2 or more cameras, then one must conclude that the objects seen in the near fields of the individual cameras and the dust bunny hypotheses get stronger. I would ask that you apply this line of reasoning and the test proposed in my last email and above to the evidence in hand to see which more consistently explains the observations. Signed, Dr. Joseph Newth. Dear Mr. Sarita, I received your package, but other duties have kept me from watching the tape you sent. I must admit that I am somewhat reluctant to begin another dialogue with you on this subject, as our last discussion nearly resulted in a formal Freedom of Information Act request on an area in which I have no formal responsibility or specialized NASA knowledge. I do not mind responding to inquiries from the public, since I feel that this is part of my job as a government employee. However, I really have little interest in getting into battles when my honest attempts to answer your questions do not seem to agree with what you want me to say. My personal home VCR has been broken for a while, and I have not yet had time to borrow one. When I do, I will let you know what I think that I see in the tape. Signed, Dr. Joseph Newth III. You're about to see what is called the star sequence. It's a very simple scene. The space shuttle's cameras are looking down at the Earth. The space shuttle is about 300 miles above the Earth, and we're looking down. We see a couple of fuzzy lights that are kind of curve-shaped. And then we see a light going by, floating right by them. And then we see another one. And then we actually hear the astronauts talking and saying, "I see a light going by in the ground down there." And there's a long pause. And then we hear, "It could have been a star, Bill." And after that, we see a few more of these things going by. So we know between the space shuttle and the Earth, there's no stars. The sun is the nearest star in the solar system. So we know that this isn't actually a star going by on the ground because we're looking right down at the Earth. There's no space between the space shuttle and the Earth where a star could possibly appear. So obviously the word star is code for something. But code for what? Is it code for the word UFO?
You see another light going by on the ground there. It could have been a star, Bill.
Hey, Roger.
Okay, Bill, I'm going to switch tapes on you now and give you a daylight view here.
Okay, and one last question before you do that, Mario. Could you tell in this if the red Stimsonite is on the left?
I believe it was, based upon what I saw in the day imagery, because it remained very stable.
On STS-80, if we look here, what you're about to see, this is the Earth down here. One of the first things you'll see on the screen is a little pulsing object. It's actually quite big. It's around that big. Moving over here, and then you'll see it actually change directions and go out into space. But that's not what we're looking for. In the middle of the screen, slowly, you'll see a very big kind of translucent ball with a hole in the middle, very similar to the rest of our UFOs, kind of streaking by and going into the distance. And slowly, 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 as it goes into the distance, you can see it getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So we were experiencing the depth of field of one of these large disks as it's moving past, way, way past the space shuttle and into the far distance. It basically reaches a point, and once it reaches this point of its destination, it stops moving, and then it becomes extra luminous. It starts to give off some extra light. And slowly what we start to see is a formation, an actual circular formation, kind of looking at an angle into this formation. We can see these objects that are slowly moving into position and then actually lighting up. Once they hit their positions, they're lighting up. This is suggesting incredible intelligence, something you wouldn't expect for space debris or space junk or some sort of natural phenomena. You certainly couldn't expect that meteorites or shooting stars could fly through space and then stop at a point and then all of a sudden give off this extra luminosity. The luminosity is constant once they start giving it off. As the camera starts to slowly go away and it's moving over the curvature of the Earth, we see more and more of these things coming into position, and then once they reach their positions, they light off. And then, finally, we see another object, kind of like this one, coming in from the foreground and heading toward